Unfortunately, most feeding mistakes are not dramatic. They're the tiny daily habits we make without realizing it that quietly impact our dog's dental health, their digestion, their allergies, and unfortunately, their longevity. So I consulted veterinarians, and in this video, I'm going to share the 15 common mistakes that almost every pet parent is making every single day, and most importantly, what to do instead and how to avoid them. We're gonna go on a little road trip for this one, but according to a top vet school, Tufts Veterinary, we wanna make sure that when we are opening our bag of kibble, we are storing the kibble in the bag that it came in. What we don't want to do, this is a huge mistake I see far too often, is we don't want to take our bag of kibble, open it, and then pour it inside a storage bin. Reason being, according to Tufts Veterinary School, top vet school, it is imperative that we store our dog's kibble in the bag that it came in, the original packaging, to preserve the nutrients and avoid fat oxidation and going rancid once it's exposed to air. So what we want to do is once we open our bag of kibble, we want to put it inside of a container, serve our dog, pull all the air out, or push all the air out, and then we want to use a strong, sturdy clip to clip it closed. Putting the whole bag in a container like this also helps keep bugs and critters out, rodents, and then you want to store this container out of direct light in a cool, dark area for the best preservation, again, of the fats and the nutrients in the food and the safety of the food. It also allows you, when you keep the bag of food, to have all the information like the lot code and the number. So in the off chance a brand has a recall, which happens, almost every brand has one, you have the information. Open Farm has actually already thought of this. So on their smaller bags, they have this zipper already built in. So I don't have to put this bag in a plastic container, but to keep it safe, I could. And then I just Ziploc it closed. Same thing with their raw mixed kibble. And one thing I don't think a lot of people realize is when you open your dog's bag of kibble, there is a certain amount of time in which you need to feed that kibble before it becomes potentially unsafe and starts to lose nutritional value. I'll talk about that in just a second. By the way, this is my sidekick, Aura. She is my foster fail. But this next mistake is something I actually help you with because it can be a little bit of work, but I make it easy when you follow along and subscribe. But the mistake is trusting completely what you see on pet food packaging and labels and pet treats for any brand without verifying with the manufacturer directly. And I do a lot of that footwork for you and share with you completely free. And it is one of the reasons I have loved and trust and respect Open Farm as a brand, because they're really pushing the envelope in being transparent and open in their sourcing, their testing, their nutritional analysis. That's why I'm really grateful that they're sponsoring this video, because they're one of the few brands that openly and publicly share their complete nutritional analysis on their website for anybody to see, down to all the micro and macro minerals, so that we as pet parents can verify that this is going to meet our dog's nutritional need. They also have traceability back to the ingredients, where they come from, as well as their testing for safety. And that's just something you don't see in the market often, though I am seeing it more and more. The next mistake is picking a food with too low of protein percent. And again, everything I share in all of my content is based on how I feed my dogs and what I learned from dozens and dozens of veterinarians and nutritionists in the field, which you can see everything I learned for free because I share it publicly when you subscribe to this channel. But what I look for in a bag of kibble is the guaranteed analysis. And this is where it's going to show us the protein, the fat percent. And this is not an exact value, but it gives us a good leading indicator to how much protein is in that food. I look for minimum 24, really 25% on the guaranteed analysis. And I ask the brand directly, what is that percent of protein from actual animal meat? Again, I look for at least 75, at least ideally 80% or more. And I actually consulted Open Farm's on-staff board certified veterinary nutritionist, and Dr. Moran verified that animal-based proteins remain the most efficient and reliable way to meet a dog's essential amino acids. And does this mean that dogs should only eat meat? No, not at all. They can get some essential nutrients, they can get fiber, they can get some protein even from plant-based ingredients. But Dr. Moran goes on to say that animal proteins remain the most reliable, nutrient-dense source of essential amino acids for the majority of dogs. And this is why when I pick up a bag of food, I'm looking at that protein. And if you want to take it one step further, I really look at the sourcing. It's really, really hard to find sourcing like Open Farm that's humane, responsible, and sustainable. But if we think about what we're feeding our animals, we want the root of the food, the sourcing of the food, to be as highest quality as possible. Another reason I love that brand, because first ingredient in all their recipes is going to be from a humanely sourced or wild caught, if it's a fish recipe, protein. You already know I love training with my dogs and doing enrichment and puzzles. Unfortunately, one of the biggest mistakes I see pet parents making every single day is feeding too many treats or even too many toppers. So I consulted board certified veterinarian nutritionist Dr. Moran. How many treats can we feed? How many toppers can we add to the bowl without overfeeding? Because we know that we have an obesity epidemic, dogs being overweight, which can lessen their lifespan by up to 2 years. She verified that we don't want treats and toppers to exceed 10% of our dog's daily caloric amount, meaning that if you're going to have a bowl of their dog food, we don't want the treats or toppers to take up more than 10% of that. And if we feed too many treats or toppers, we can skew the vitamin, mineral, macronutrient balance in the food. And this is important for all dogs, but especially growing puppies, seniors, dogs on a special diet. Maybe they have an illness that they're working through. I'll link below, or you can go to my website, rachelfusaro.com, to see a list of my favorite toppers, so that we can give toppers that are most nutrient dense without going over calories, as well as my favorite dog foods on my dog food list. The next common mistake is believing that kibble actually cleans our dog's teeth. As soon as your dog crunches down on kibble, there's nothing against kibble, I'll get to it in a moment, but as soon as your dog crunches down on kibble, it bursts, it breaks open. It's not actually scraping the plaque. And we also know that many lower quality kibbles can be really high in simple carbohydrates, which we know ultimately can promote plaque production. So we don't want that. We also know that dental health is directly correlated and connected to our dog's overall health, longevity, heart health, and we know that dental health starts in the gut. So feeding a high quality food like an open farm food that I love and feed to my dogs is really paramount. And this isn't just me saying this. According to one of the top vet schools, Tough Veterinary School, they state that it is true that in the past, veterinarians thought that crunchy kibble would clean teeth, but that is no longer the case. We now know that kibble and wet food can contribute to the development of plaque. If you want me to talk about how I keep my dog's teeth clean, comment below and I'll make a separate video on that. Feeding the same food, same brand, same protein forever and ever. Now, of course, work with your vet, but generally speaking, for my dogs, I rotate their foods regularly. And because I did this, when I first started rotating their foods and proteins, I did it slow to avoid GI upset. I have a whole video linked down below on how I transition foods. But now, because I've done it so much, I can switch different foods, different formats, different proteins day by day, and they have no GI upset as long as I keep with higher quality foods. It's actually one of the reasons Open Farm is so popular, because they have so many formats. You know, my favorite is their gently cooked. They also have freeze dried, air dried, baked kibble, regular kibble, wet food, and they are formulated so that you can rotate between the different proteins or the different recipes. And the reason it's important to rotate is, one, just enrichment. Like, imagine eating the same food, the same protein day in, day out. That can't be a positive experience. Dogs love trying different foods. Variety is important for microbiome health, and by rotating, even through different brands and proteins, you're making sure that your dog is actually getting their nutrient value. Rotating foods and proteins also can help reduce chances of getting a protein intolerance or sensitivity. Like, if I feed my dog chicken for their entire life, it may not happen, but they could become and develop a sensitivity to chicken. So I like to rotate between brands, formats, and protein. If you're just starting, you might want to do it slowly over several weeks. Believing your dog is picky, so you add toppers or try to switch up their food to get them to eat their food, is a common mistake that I see, and it breaks my heart, because the reality is dogs aren't really picky. They love to eat. If your dog is showing symptoms of being picky, that, to me, and in my opinion and my experience after learning from vets and trainers, indicates that there could be something going on with your dog. So again, always work with a vet. If you want an in-depth video on why there really is no such thing as a picky dog, let me know in the comments. But high level, if my dog isn't eating their food, you will not see me adding things to their food to try to get them to eat, or changing their food just to get them to eat. If my dog's not eating, and if I have to do a special little dancing routine to get them to eat, That to me means that they could be having some kind of health issue, stomach upset, nausea. They could learn over time that when they eat, they get discomfort. If you're having a dog with behavioral struggles like anxiety or reactivity, I want you to really work with a vet behaviorist, work with a trainer who's experienced in this to try to see if there might be some kind of a gut imbalance. Your dog could also just be stressed. There could be something going on in their environment that makes them not want to eat. Or, we talked about this before, over half of dogs are overweight or obese, which is really, really, really impacting their longevity and their lifespan. So they may not be eating the dinner you put down because your breakfast and lunch for them is too much. They may just not be hungry. If you want to deep dive into what to do with a picky dog, let me know in the comments below. You're already following me, right? Like you've already clicked that subscribe button, because if you are, then you're not making this mistake, which is I see too many pet parents not adding fresh food, pet safe toppers to the bowl. And what I mean by that is adding a little bit of nutrients or fresh fiber or moisture. Open Farm has an awesome bone broth. Yep, Aura loves it. She's like, oh, I'm gonna get some broth from humanely raised, responsibly sourced, grass-fed beef. But even just stuff you have in your pantry, like a little bit of sauteed broccoli and just a little bit of coconut oil or steamed green beans. One, that's important for nutrient variety. It's important to give our dogs access to fresh foods. That's naturally what they're biologically meant to eat. And three, it helps make sure that our dogs are getting enough access to fresh fiber. Fiber, I feel and believe in seeing hundreds of diets from dogs all over the world, that they're just not getting enough real fiber in their diet, which is important for GI health, skin health. Oh my gosh, she's like, oh mom, I sleepy. Here, you get a treat for being so good. I think this is pretty mainstream now. She's like, okay, you can't just give me one, but making sure we don't feed our dogs too close before or after strenuous or high exercise activity, at least for my dogs, a couple hours before we do running activity, exercise, and after. I try not to feed, and I try to give water just a little bit after they've cooled down for at least 10 minutes or so to avoid bloat or other GI upset issues. This next one gets me a lot of questions, but when you open up a bag of food, regardless of what size it is optimal for the safety of the food and the nutrients of the food to feed it within 4 to 6 weeks of opening it, even if it's not expired. So for example, this food expires a year from right now. That does not mean that once I open it, it's good for a year. That means that before it's opened, it's good for a year. Once it's opened and has exposure to oxygen, which can make fats go rancid and the nutrients start to degrade once it's opened, you have about 4 to 6 weeks to feed this. So you want to buy a bag of food that your dog can eat in under 6 weeks. So if they're a smaller dog, I would get smaller bags. If they're a big dog and they go through a big bag, you get like 20, 25 pound bags to feed them. And this isn't just me. According to Tufts, again, a top veterinary university, they state that once you open a new bag of food, they recommend using it within 2-3 months max to keep it as fresh and nutritious as possible. Now, Aura wishes I made this next mistake, but I won't, because it is really harmful to our dog's health and longevity. And that is free feeding or eyeballing how much you feed your dog. So just kind of putting your hand in the bag, putting it in the bowl and hoping that it's right. The reason being is when we free feed or when we don't measure how much we feed our dogs, we are at risk and very likely to overfeed. We already talked about overfeeding can lead to obesity and overweight, which can hurt their GI system, can hurt their joints, it can lessen their lifespan, and you're spending more money on dog food because you're feeding more than you need to. So what I do is I start with the feeding recommendations that are listed on the bag. Then I weigh my dog regularly and I adjust accordingly, because this is just a starting point, what they recommend. Oftentimes I'll feed a little bit more, a little bit less, just depend on my dog's activity. And I even consulted board certified vet nutritionist Dr. Moran on this matter. And she specifically said that accurate portioning of their dog's food is essential for supporting a healthy body condition and preventing long-term metabolic disease. And feeding the recommended amount ensures the diet provides its intended nutrient density. It's really important that when we feed our dogs, we're feeding, and this is how I feed my dogs, good ingredients at the appropriate nutrient levels. And the only way we can do that is getting food that's sourced appropriately, The ingredients are made with real whole foods primarily. Now, some dogs can handle this next mistake, but this is something I have learned from experience with my dogs vomiting up bile or getting really kind of pushy or demanding around mealtime. And the mistake is feeding our dogs at the same time every day. This is a mistake because what can happen is if your dog eats at 8 a.m. every single day, your dog's digestive system will start preparing to get ready to digest food, break it down at like 7:30 every single day. And that can actually cause bile buildup. And if they don't eat by 8, they could be vomiting. Life happens, and sometimes you're not going to be able to feed your dog at a certain time. And if they're so used to that, that could cause a little spike in stress. I try to keep my dog's feeding times pretty random. I feed my dogs between 1 and 3 times a day based on my dog's needs. If you want to know exactly how often I feed each of my dogs and why, let me know in the comments and I'll make another video on that. If you're making this next mistake, we've all been there, but it's really important you stop right now. And the mistake is not cleaning your dog's or cat, if you have one, food and water bowl. According to the CDC, you need to clean your dog's food and water bowl after every use and daily. Now, again, if you want to see all my favorite dog food supplements, toys, treats, dental chews, dog foods, go to my website, rachelfusaro.com, click shop or dog food list. You also want to make sure you subscribe and share this video because as you have learned, these are very simple, easy, quick fixes that can have a massive impact on our dogs' longevity, their health, their wellness, their dental health, their itchy, allergy, skin, all the things. These are simple fixes that the more you share this, the more we can help pets all around the world. And with that, I hope you have a beautiful day. Goodbye.